Orioles won the American League East in 2014, but this season looking up in the division at Alex Rodriguez and the Yankees. Baltimore's Inner Harbor on a beautiful Saturday evening as we welcome you to Camden Yards. It's the second of a three-game weekend series between longtime rivals, the Orioles and the Yankees. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Baseball Night in America. Kenny Albert with Tom Verducci and Ken Rosenthal. Orioles won the series opener last night, 11-3. Tom, they've won a season-high 5 consecutive games.
And really, they're doing it with offense. This is a team now starting to get healthy, and the bats are really coming around, especially with the home run ball coming back to this lineup. But for me, kind of an overlooked change is Manny Machado in the leadoff spot in Buck Showalter's lineup. He's really not a prototypical leadoff hitter, but when he went there in early May, that's when this team started to come together, and he's still only 22. Doesn't turn 23 until next month.
Well, on the other side, it is the veteran Alex Rodriguez closing in on a couple of huge milestones. 6 hits away from 3,000, 1 run batted in away from 2,000, and by the way, his Yankees are in first place.
Amazing. I want everybody to raise their hands if they thought at this time of the year Alex Rodriguez would be a consideration for the All-Star game. Nobody should be raising their hands, even in the Yankees front office. You could not have seen this coming. You see the credentials. If you like OPS, he's second among DHs in OPS. The longest tenured Yankee has turned the clock back to 2009. And speaking of 2009, their longest tenured pitcher, CC Sabathia, is going to take the ball in this game. When you look at the numbers, Kenny, the last 2 starts, he has been on point. I think this is a fascinating matchup because Sabathia has been pounding the strike zone this year, and he's facing not only a hot swinging team, but one of the most aggressive swinging teams in the league.
Sabathia and Bud Norris, the pitching matchup tonight. It's Baseball Night in America. A-Rod and the Yankees getting set for the second of this 3-game series against Adam Jones and the Orioles. It's coming up on Fox. Norris takes the mound here at Camden Yards on an 84-degree Saturday evening. Norris will face the Yankees for the third time this season. Yankees come in with a record of 33-27, first place in the American League East by a half game over the Tampa Bay Rays. Brett Gardner will lead off for Joe Girardi, followed by the third baseman Chase Headley. A-Rod bats third, Mark Teixeira in the cleanup spot, then Brian McCann, Carlos Beltran. Didi Gregorius will hit seventh, followed by Stephen Drew and the rookie Mason Williams, who homered in his major league debut last night. Williams will hit ninth.
Yeah, that lineup is a tough assignment for a right-handed pitcher who lefties are slugging .611 against this year. When you defend the Yankees, you're really defending the home run. And with Norris, that lineup packed with 8 left-handed hitters, to me it's going to be about his slider. He's got a really good power slider. He'll throw to both sides of the plate to the left-handed hitters. Mixes in a changeup, but to me, if he's got the good tilt on his slider, that's going to, hopefully for Norris, neutralize the left-handed power of the Yankees.
Getting set to face the leadoff man, Brett Gardner. As we check out the Orioles defensively around the infield, Pierce, Flaherty, Hardy, and Machado. Reimold, Jones, and Delman Young, who leads the American League with 8 assists. Orioles have 20, most in all of baseball. Our keys to the game brought to you by Lincoln Motor Company.
Well, I heard some rumor about soccer going on in World Cup, so we'll go with the World Cup theme here. For the Yankees, defend the penalty area. That means inner defense. Their infield defense this year has been horrible. That needs to improve. And for Baltimore, attack from the corners. The corner guys, Steve Pierce, Manny Machado, right-handed power against CC Sabathia.
The score is 0-0 as we get underway.
It won't end that way, though. I can guarantee you that.
Not here. So Brett Gardner working on a 6-game hitting streak. Leads off against Bud Norris and takes ball 1. Gardner batting .277 on the season. 4th in the league with 42 runs scored. The 1-0 from Norris. Ball 2.
That's exactly what you don't want to do if you're Norris. You really, despite the power we talked about with the Yankees, have to stay aggressive. The Yankees get more 3-1 and 2-0 counts than any team in baseball.
Gardner takes ball 3 from Norris with Chase Headley waiting on deck.
This is what's known as a 3-0 strike. You throw that pitch 0-2, it's a ball. 3-0 to strike.
Gary Meals, the crew chief, behind the plate tonight. The 3-1 from Norris, and the count is now full.
Good aggressive hack here on a 3-1 fastball from Gardner. Doesn't get it.
So Norris has worked his way back in the count. Payoff pitch to the leadoff man, Brett Gardner. Adam Jones in center field, 1 away. So Gardner flies out as Chase Headley steps in. Headley left last night's game early due to a groin injury, back in the starting lineup tonight.
That's not easy to watch. You see where this ball hits him. He came out of the game nauseous.
Not easy to watch, so we'll show it twice.
I turned my head.
Headley just 3 for his last 21 at the plate, but he's had terrific success against Norris throughout his career. 7 for 20 with a pair of home runs.
Yeah, actually up and down this lineup, some good numbers against Bud Norris. The 9 starters in the Yankee lineup, career .333 against Bud Norris.
The 0-2 and a base hit into left center. It rolls to the wall. Headley He is in at second with a stand-up double. You hear the reaction from the crowd as Alex Rodriguez is introduced. 2 hits and an RBI last night. So A-Rod currently stands 6 hits shy of 3,000. And he has 1,999 career runs batted in. Second all time. Only Hank Aaron has eclipsed 2,000.
Well, for obvious reasons, it's one of the more quiet countdowns to 3,000 that you will ever see. See the shift in play here for Alex. The power has declined. Came out 10 home runs, first 124 at bats, just 1 in the last 76.
Bounce to third. Machado. So Rodriguez grounds out. 2 away for Mark Teixeira. Teixeira also hears boos every time he returns to his hometown after he did not sign with the Orioles.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to sign with a club, though, when they don't make you an offer.
Right.
But it's the fans' prerogative.
Teixeira out of Mount St. Joseph's High School. He was the Maryland State Player of the Year twice, in 1997, again in 98. Headley takes his leadoff second with 2 away. And Teixeira takes a called strike, 0-1. What a bounce back season for Mark. 3rd in the American League in home runs, tied for the league lead in runs batted in.
It's that no fun diet that he's on. No gluten, no dairy, no processed sugar. It's working for him.
And he's healthy.
Well, that's the biggest key. You know, he really went to that diet because of the injuries, and even not so much the injuries, the inflammation that he was constantly feeling in his body. And he said after the first month on the diet, and he started in the off season, that's when he immediately felt the difference. Didn't even have to get into baseball activities.
The 0-2 from Norris, missing high and away. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Brian McCann on deck. Should Teixeira reach? Chase Headley, a 1-out double. Takes his lead off second. Bounce foul back behind first. Tonight's Yankees starter, CC Sabathia. Teixeira with a base hit into left center. Here's Headley around third, heading home. Yankees lead 1-0. RBI number 46 for Mark Teixeira, and that leads the American League.
Well, if you could lip read there, Bud Norris, unbelievable. This is a rarity. Why? Mark Teixeira going the other way. 2 strikes, fastball running away from him. He actually shortens up, takes it the other way. And Kenny, I'll give you another rarity. Chase Headley scoring from second base on a single. No team in the league has scored fewer runs from second on a single than the Yankees. Not a lot of team speed here, not a lot of opposite field hitting. You just saw it right here in the first inning. Oh, by the way, that's one thing they do really well. Get out to leads early.
58 runs in the first inning. More than any other team in the major leagues. Yankees are a plus 32 in the first. They've outscored their opponents 58-26. Orioles shift with Brian McCann at the plate.
Boy, starting pitchers love that too, huh? You go out to the mound with a lead before you throw your first pitch. Reminds me back in the day with the exchange rate. We'd make a trip to Canada You exchanged some money and you got back more money than you handed. You felt like, you won the first race at the racetrack.
McCann with a drive, deep right field. It's off the out-of-town scoreboard. McCann heading for second. Teixeira around third. Here's the throw home. Safe. At home is Teixeira. Yankees lead 2-0.
Well, watch Delmon Young, how close he gets to the wall. He's much too close to the wall, and that's going to allow Teixeira, and I'll say it again, another rarity, scoring from first base on a double. Not just a double, but a double to right field. Watch the hand. Does he get the hand in before the tag on the chest? Let's see. Looks like he does. No challenge from the Orioles.
RBI number 39 for McCann. So 2 runs here in the first inning for the Yankees. McCann went to third on the throw. Beltran at the plate. .387 career average against Norris. 12 for 31. Now 2-1. Yankees loaded the bases in the first inning last night, but did not score a run. 2 runs on 3 hits in the first inning tonight.
Well, let's remember too, Bud Norris making his second start after coming off the DL. He was on for about a month with bronchitis, lost 13 pounds.
Into the shift, Beltran grounds out. That ends the inning. But the Yankees score 2. First Headley, driven home by Teixeira. And then Teixeira avoids the tag from Wieters. 2-0 Yankees. The Orioles, as CC Sabathia gets set to face Manny Machado, who will lead off, followed by hits third, then Delmon Young in the cleanup spot. Chris Davis will bat fifth for Buck Showalter, then Matt Wieters, J.J. Hardy, Steve Pearce, and Ryan Flaherty for the Orioles, who come in with a record of 30-30. They've won 5 in a row. CC Sabathia coming off the win over the Angels On Sunday, he was ejected after going 6 innings for arguing balls and strikes. Record of 3-7 on the season, but as we saw, he has pitched well over his last 2 starts, allowing only 2 earned runs in each.
Yeah, and actually a little bit of a different pitcher. Reminds me a little bit of Masahiro Tanaka, the transformation he is making in terms of going more to 2-seam fastballs than the power 4-seamer. Sabathia in his first 5 starts, as usual, many more 4-seamers than 2-seamers, but in the last 7, actually more sinkers than 4-seamers. Become a ground ball pitcher.
Now 2-1 on Machado, who was 2 for 4 last night, scored 3 runs. He started every game for the Orioles so far this season. Reimold on deck, then Jones. Center field. Easy play for the rookie Mason Williams. 1 away. Defensively for the Yankees, around the infield, Teixeira, Drew, Gregorius, and Headley. Gardner, Williams, and Beltran from left to right of the outfield. The battery of Sabathia and McCann.
And if Sabathia is on, that left side should be tested. Chase Headley already a career high 14 errors at third base,
including 1 last night. Here's Nolan Reimold, 4th game back with the Orioles. Headley to Teixeira for out number 2.
And you saw that really stiff overhand throwing motion. 7 of his errors have been throwing the ball to first base. Well, the third baseman will drop a little bit lower. Watch how upright he is on this throw. And he's been spiking some of those throws to first base.
2 away, bases empty. Here's Adam Jones. 1 for 5 last night, drove in a run.
Always have to be careful with first pitch with this guy. Doesn't have to be in the zone. He goes up there looking to hit anything.
Takes the first pitch, a called strike, 0-1.
And so he takes, of course. Just showing bunt, taken all the way. Wants Sabathia to work a little harder than he has so far.
Ball back to the screen, 0-2. Game Changer Profile brought to you by T-Mobile, official sponsor of Game Changers. Jones batting .389 over his last 9 games, 2 home runs, 7 runs batted in, 8 extra base hits, and terrific lifetime numbers against Sabathia. .310 average with 4 home runs among his 18 hits against CC.
CC wants this ball in off the plate. Not close.
A 1-2 from Sabathia. And a base hit into left field. So a 2-out single here in the bottom of the first inning off the bat of Adam Jones.
Yeah, you saw McCann put the sign down for the changeup. This is right where he wants it. Maybe he wants it a little lower, but look at the plate coverage of Adam Jones. This ball is a good 4 or 5 inches off the plate. He's able to go out there and hook that for a base hit. So difficult to pitch to Adam Jones.
So now Delman Young, 8 for 27 lifetime against Sabathia. Sabathia pitching with the 2-0 lead. Yankees have scored 1 or fewer runs, Tom, in 6 of his 12 previous starts this season. So he has received some run support early.
See the numbers there. Tough time in recent years in this ballpark. Started his career 10-1. Winless in his last 6 starts here.
And prior to that stretch, he won 7 straight here at Camden Yards, but has not been victorious in this ballpark since May of 2011.
In this location, but certainly tied up Delman Young with that two-seamer.
Jones, the runner on first with 2 outs. 2-1 to Young. Lifted into right. And the catch is made by Beltran to end the inning. By the Lincoln Motor Company on the first ever MKC. The Baltimore Harbor, beautiful Saturday evening. Yankees over the Orioles 2-0. Bottom of the order for the Yankees against Bud Norris here in the second. Didi Gregorius, then Stephen Drew, then Mason Williams. Gregorius batting .228. Takes strike 1.
A little better lately, .269 in June. The Yankees been working really hard on him, with him on some of the mechanics of his swing. Every team with 2 hitting coaches now. Yeah, what you're trying to do is get his backside more involved in his swing. Early in the season, check out his back knee. Does he drive it to the baseball? It kind of just stays there. The other thing I noticed with Didi, that front leg, you really should hit off a stiff front leg, maximum contact. And he actually has a bend in the knee when the bat is getting through the zone. A lot to work on with this guy, and he just is not comfortable hitting the ball to the other field as well.
We saw the 2 hitting coaches, Jeff Pentland and Alan Cockrell, replaced Kevin Long now with the Mets.
Jeff Pentland actually was a left-handed throwing catcher briefly in the minor leagues. Gregorius down on strikes. First strikeout for
Bud Norris, as we take you back to the 2 runs the Yankees scored in the first inning.
Yeah, I said you defend the home run. How about their running game? Not sure why Chase Headley froze 2-out line drive, but look, he does a nice job cutting the corner. Only the 24th time the Yankees have scored on a single from second base. Now, well, here's Mark Teixeira. I think they ran the Preakness here a few weeks ago, right? There we go, around the second turn he comes. Here comes Mark Teixeira. Keep your eye on the speed here as he heads home down the stretch. He's getting faster. I guess he needed about 200 feet or so to get the engines fully warmed up. There it is. Watch the maximum speed of Mark Teixeira at the end of his run. That's pretty impressive. He wasn't running out of gas. He just needed a little while to get warmed up. Kenny, you talk about rarities.
Stephen Drew with a drive to right center, and it rolls up against the wall. Another extra base hit for Stephen Drew. It's been such a bizarre season for Drew at the plate, hitting just 169, but now 18 of his 32 hits have gone for extra bases.
Very strange season, but not strange to see him jump on high fastballs. Loves to pull those pitches. He's an extreme pull hitter with pop when the ball is up. That's a mistake. That's where Stephen Drew likes the baseball. In terms of that rarity of Mark Teixeira, Kenny, it's only the second time in the last 3 years he scored from first on a double.
Wow. And the replay of Mark coming down the stretch, brought to you by MLB's StatCast technology. Here's Mason Williams, who made his major league debut last night and homered, something he did not do in the minor leagues in 245 plate appearances all season.
Adrenaline is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Had his family on hand here to see that.
He became the 9th Yankee to go deep in his major league debut. A list that includes Yogi Berra, who did it back in September of 1946, through Zealous Wheeler, who did it last July.
It's really a good line drive stroke that he has. He just hit this one so hard it carried out. Doesn't profile to be a home run hitter, but a good line drive hitter and excellent defender, can really run him down. We saw that as well last night in center field.
Yankees 4th round draft pick in 2010. It's his 6th year in the organization. And you talk about a family that knows how to make a debut in professional sports. His dad, Derwin, was a wide receiver for the New England Patriots in his first NFL game back in 1985. 5 receptions, 94 yards against the Green Bay Packers.
So last night, did they argue who had the better debut?
They may have.
That's pretty impressive.
A 1-2 from Norris, and Williams down on strikes. 2 away here in the top of the second inning.
Well, good job by Norris here, expanding the strike zone. Young hitter, trying to protect, maybe a little anxiety with 2 strikes, well off the plate.
Brett Gardner flies to center his first time up. Yankees with a 2-0 lead. 2 runs on 4 hits, including 3 doubles. Gardner takes strike 1 from Norris, who lost to the Yankees back on May 10th. That was his last start before going on the disabled list. That was the game in which Michael Pineda struck out 16 Orioles. Norris also started against the Yankees here in April, was not involved in the decision. He was 4-0 against the Yankees last season. 0-2 on Gardner. The 0-2, and Gardner smacks it foul down the left field line.
Gives you an idea of a good two-strike approach by Gardner. Fastball up and in. Lets that ball travel. Early in the count, maybe he's out in front and hooks that pitch, but a good two-strike approach, letting the ball get deep.
Norris strikes out the side of the second. Drew stranded at second. Yankees lead by 2. Switch to the Data Strong Network. CC Sabathia and the New York Yankees out to a 2-0 lead at Camden Yards. Kenny Albert, Tom Verducci, Ken Rosenthal. Yankees with 2 runs in the first off Bud Norris, and now Chris Davis leads off against Sabathia in the bottom of the second inning. Big night last night for Davis, 3 for 5, a home run, 4 runs batted in the 11-3 Orioles victory.
And this year, a little bit uncharacteristically, hitting very well against left-handed pitching. 302 coming into tonight.
Major League draft, of course, this past week. Davis, back in 2004, was originally a 50th round pick of the Yankees. He was the 3rd to last pick in the entire draft. Did not sign.
And you saw a good look at the shift they put on Chris Davis. You know how hard it is for him to get a base hit on the ground? He has 7 hits all year on the ground. He doesn't hit the ball the other way. To get it through the shift, he's got to hit a bullet if he's going to do so on the ground.
Lifts it in the air into right field for a base hit. So the leadoff man is on for the Orioles in the second as we send it downstairs to Ken Rosenthal. Ken.
Kenny, the Yankees have insisted all season that CC Sabathia has been unlucky, and that claim is supported by his high opponent's batting average on balls in play. Now, his ERA entering the night was 5.25, but when you start to look at some of his advanced stats, his stats that remove fielders, normalize home run rate, things start to look a lot better. Now, I explained this to CC, that his advanced metrics look a lot better than his traditional ones, and he said, wait, I'm a traditional guy. I look at wins and losses, and not just wins and losses for me, but for the team. And he added, I feel like I'm throwing better than I have in 2 years by far.
I would agree with that, mostly because of the health, having his legs underneath him, the knees especially. I think he's a guy, you look the last 2 starts, he's had tied his career, or at least season high, in swings and misses. That tells me stuff is coming back. And again, different kind of stuff with the 2-seamer being more in play. He tried another one right there, missed location with it. That's a pitch he can run back over the plate against right-handers.
18 career wins against the Orioles. 10 here at Camden Yards. Wieters lifts it in the air to left field. Gardner under it for out number 1. And Joe Girardi told us, Tom, that CC battled his way through his last start on Sunday. He found a way. He said, I was ready to send him back out for the 7th until we both got ejected.
The umpire made the decision for him to remove his starting pitcher. CC not happy with the strike zone and got really a quick ejection walking off after the 6th.
With 1 away and Davis the runner on first, here's J.J. Hardy working on a 5-game hitting streak. Hardy teammates with Sabathia briefly in Milwaukee back in 2008. Bounced into the glove of Henley to retire Hardy as Davis moves to second. Time for Pepsi's most thrilling historical moments. We take you back to Sabathia's major league debut. It was against the Orioles back in April of 2001. Gave up 3 runs in the first inning, not involved in the decision. Then September 2010, he won his 20th game of the season, his first and only 20-win season. 2 years later, game 1 of the ALDS. 8 2/3 for the win against the Orioles. And then in game 5, a complete game 4-hitter in the series deciding game. 121 pitches, 9 strikeouts as the Yankees celebrate. So some major moments in the career of CC Sabathia have come against the Baltimore Orioles.
And really what jumps out at me looking at those videos, how beautiful his delivery is, and really hasn't changed much over the years. Reminds me a little bit of David Wells. You see the bigger body out there, but really so athletic, stays over the rubber so long on balance, and that's what allows him, as it did with Wells, to throw so many strikes. The ability to repeat the delivery. Watch how long he stays over the rubber on balance, and now he goes. And the easy arm swing. I love to see that deceleration where the pitching hand actually winds up behind the body. You don't want that pitching hand to stop as if you're jamming on the brakes. Really natural, easy delivery by Sabathia. Hasn't changed much over the years.
15th season in the major leagues. American League Cy Young Award winner back in 2007, a 6-time All-Star.
Recently passed 2,500 punch-outs in his career. 9th all-time among left-handed pitchers.
Two-one to Pierce. Here's Davis around third, and then he's called back. So first and third for the Orioles as Pierce extends his hitting streak to 5 games.
Now for a lot of third base coaches, this would be an automatic send with 2 outs, left-handed hitter on deck in the 9-hole. But I agree with this decision because Brett Gardner is going to touch the baseball before the runner is going to get to third base. That's really the key. That look at, he's getting Bobby Dickerson getting a real good look at it. That is tough to score him on that base hit. Chris Davis not known for speed, but again, Gardner does such a good job charging the baseball. He gets to the baseball before Davis gets to third base. That equals a red light.
So runners on the corners for Ryan Flaherty. And he takes a called strike, 0-1. Davis and Pierce.
Saw the changeup there. CeCe, unlike Norris, will throw his changeup to lefties and righties. Norris will throw his just to left-handed hitters.
Nice block by McCann. Now 2-1.
Should count as a run saved, right? Breaking ball bounces in front of the plate. McCann deadens it with perfect technique.
Two to Flaherty. Bounce foul off to the right side.
Yeah, that breaking ball is the great equalizer. If you want to know why left-handed batters hit 164 against him, look at the sweep on that breaking ball. That's a nice job by Flaherty, especially backed up off of the fastball just to get to another pitch. Let's see if he goes back to that and pushes it a little farther away from Flaherty.
Strike three, says third base umpire Paul Emmel. First strikeout for Sabathia. Orioles strand 2. We'll return to Baltimore after these messages from your local Fox station. Alex Rodriguez due up second for the Yankees. Third inning in Baltimore. Chase Headley leads off for the Yankees against Bud Norris. First pitch taken to the bag by Pierce for out number 1.
Well, there's certain dark arts associated with the art of catching. Watch Brian McCann here. Watch him make the call himself. He starts to vacate before he even gets the call from third base that it's a strike 3. I'm not sure that was a swing here. Tough to see from this angle. Really, there's no definition of what constitutes a swing in the rule book. Umpire judgment thought that Flaherty went around. I thought Brian McCann did a great job of selling it. We talk about pitch framing, trying to make balls look like strikes. And who needs a catching instructor? I mean, basically, you sit down with James Lipton at the Actors Studio to learn how to catch. You sell the umpires.
Alex Rodriguez, for the second time tonight, grounds out to the third baseman, Manny Machado, now 2 away.
You know, years ago, Kenny had actually umpired a spring training game on the bases for a story for Sports Illustrated. Got a crash course in umpiring. What they told me was when you're on the line, stand on the line when you're on first base or third base. And if you see the barrel of the bat cross the visual of looking down the foul line, then that's a swing. The rule of thumb to go by.
What have you not done during spring training? You went to camp with the Blue Jays. You umpired a game.
I haven't been part of the clubhouse crew. That's too much work. You know, washing the laundry.
We could arrange that. Teixeira drove in a run back in the first inning. Came around to score on a McCann double.
Yeah, you know, earlier I mentioned about Teixeira not signing here, and obviously he gets the boos every time. Ken Rosenthal pointing out to me. Of course, he did get an offer, not in the same ballpark as the Yankees, but the Orioles did get in the game. Boston Red Sox were in that game, too, for Mark Teixeira. And I thought, actually, that signing really swung the balance of power in the AL East. The Red Sox not getting Teixeira, the Yankees getting him. Along with A.J. Burnett, of course, and the 2009 World Championship follows.
CC Sabathia as well.
I know, talking to Alex Rodriguez, the fact that Marcus swung the bat so well this year has made it easier on him. He's had a lot of walks, and he said it's like a two-man game they're playing, similar to 2009.
Teixeira strikes out. Fourth strikeout for Norris. A 1-2-3 third. Manny Machado leads off for the Orioles here in the bottom of the third inning. Fly to center his first time up. Machado not yet 23 years of age. Tonight, Tom, his 350th Major League game.
It's amazing. He seems like a 10-year veteran, doesn't he? Actually has more hits through his first 350 games than any Oriole in history, displacing Eddie Murray.
And the only other Oriole to play in at least 350 games before turning 23, Boog Powell.
Well, you had to say that name, right? Because when you say that name, immediately I get hungry. The barbecue. Oh, I can smell it from here.
We walked past there prior to the game yesterday. Still smells as good as it did when this ballpark opened back in '92.
There's a lot of good restaurants in this town, no question about that. And that's one of them, right outside the ballpark.
A 1-2 from Sabathia. Base hit into left field off the bat of Machado, whose season was cut short last year, played in only 82 games. We spoke with manager Buck Showalter moments ago and asked him about the importance of Machado to this Orioles lineup.
Well, it's just another spot in the order. You got to grind out at bats with the American League. Every league, pitchers, more spots they got to work through, and obviously he's above average defender. And I'm real proud of Manning's rehab and everybody that had something to do with it. But that was he really got after it, as did Matt Wieters, and we're hoping Jonathan Scope.
Bud Norris, second start, coming off the DL. What do you see so far?
Throughout the first inning, I tell you, as a right-handed starter against this lineup, they run out all those guys. You got to be able to get something soft over and locate a fastball. But that happens with any lineup, and he's done a better job the last couple innings and kept us engaged.
Thanks, Buck.
All right, guys.
Nolan Reimold takes ball 2. And you talk about comebacks up and down this Orioles lineup. Machado and Matt Wieters. How about Nolan Reimold? Underwent multiple neck surgeries following an injury he suffered during a game in Chicago back in 2013. Called up earlier this week by the Orioles. Of course, he started his career here, played in 29 games last season for Toronto and Arizona.
Yeah, it's a great story, especially coming back here. You mentioned that injury in Chicago, diving into the stands, putting his career on the line, trying to make a catch. One thing he does and always has done well, hit left-handed pitching, and he's got good numbers against Sabathia. Now 9 for 28 in his career off CC.
And for more on Reimold's comeback, downstairs to Ken.
Those surgeries you spoke of, Ken, took place in 2012 and 2013. And Reimold actually filed a lawsuit in April alleging negligent care at Johns Hopkins Hospital, saying that after the first operation, he was cleared too quickly to play. He has no such complaints about the Orioles. He's grateful, very grateful, for the way they treated him. They designated him for assignment last July, and that led to him bouncing around a little bit, the Blue Jays, then the Diamondbacks. But he signed back here because he felt that loyalty to this organization.
Reimold playing in his 4th game since returning from AAA.
And that last pitch was that two-seamer coming back over the inside part of the plate. Didn't get the call.
Payoff pitch from Sabathia. Lifted to the right side, foul territory. And it drops in between McCann and Teixeira.
Well, this happened last night in the outfield. It happened a couple of weeks ago in the infield. And now it happens in foul territory. Lack of communication. Who's calling it? Who's calling it? You got it. You got it. Nobody's got it. Ball should be caught. And you can see the way McCann was tracking the ball. It did have some spin and came back, but those pop-ups behind the plate always do come back for the most part. With the spin, they come back.
Deep right field. Beltran back. Looks up. It's gone. Two-run shot off the bat of Nolan Reimold, his 2nd of the season. We are tied at 2.
The lefty masher does it again. Here's the foul ball. Should have retired Reimold in this pop-up. It lands on the track, leading to another pitch, which is a fastball up and away. Away is fine, but up there in this ballpark, Sabathia pays for the mistake. I'll go back to the pitch even before the pop-up. That comeback two-seamer Sabathia thought was a strike. Didn't get that. So the missed opportunity on a possible strike 3, missed opportunity on a pop-up, and then Reimold cashes in, the lefty masher.
Adam Jones singled his first time up. Diving stop by Headley. 1 away.
Step and a dive, that's what the position is all about. And again, the overhand throw, watch him spike the baseball. Throwing a sinker over to first. That one gets there in time, but great reaction playing up close in front of the bag by Chase Headley.
One away, here's Delman Young, fly to right. His first time up. Orioles have tied the game at 2 following the missed opportunity, the pop-up in foul territory that dropped in between Brian McCann and Mark Teixeira. Next pitch, Reimold takes Sabathia deep. Young hustling down to first. The throw by McCann is in time to retire Young. 2 away.
Let's go back to the Reimold at bat. There's the two-seamer, just missed. Now he comes back with another one, gets the pop-up that he wants. That pitch was down, and now another one that is up. Huge swing in fortunes in those 3 pitches.
Two away, here's Chris Davis, singled back in the second inning. The home run allowed by Sabathia, 13th of the season. That's in the top 6 of the American League. He allowed back-to-back home runs in his last start of the first inning. Mike Trout and Albert Pujols wound up winning the game. Those were the only 2 runs scored by the Angels on Sunday. How about one of those, Tom?
Well, if you can't make it out to Boog's Barbecue, that is certainly convenient. They come to you.
Good second choice. Foul back to the screen. 1-2 on Davis. Nolan Reimold, second home run in 4 games. Davis did not go around.
There's the shift again. Chris Davis, 12 for 120 and 2 strike counts this year. He is not going to shorten his stroke. And nor should he right here. I mean, base is empty, 2 outs. You got a guy who can lose one in a hurry. I don't want to see him shorten up, go the other way. This is launch time.
Payoff pitch. Chris Davis, 2 bunt singles this past week. First 2 bunt hits of his career.
I like it. I saw a lot of the left-handed hitters out here early working on bunting.
Drills it foul down the right field line.
Done a nice job keeping that front side in against that Sabathia sweeper. Let's see if CC goes back upstairs and elevates a fastball.
Sabathia wins the battle, but the Orioles scored 2 on 2 hits. Second opportunity for Nolan Reibold. He takes Sabathia deep. 2-2 through 3 in Baltimore. For your All-Stars with the 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot for the 2015 All-Star Game in Cincinnati. Vote at MLB.com/vote. Catch all the excitement of the 86th Major League Baseball All-Star Game, July 14th, live on Fox. Or shall we say the Kansas City Royals against the National League.
My goodness, is Kansas City the most wired city in the country? Because obviously everything is done now online, right? There's no more of the paper ballots. They are turning out in support of the Royals.
Reminiscent of the 1976 Reds, who had 5 All-Star starters. Brian McCann, a 7-time All-Star, leads off for the Yankees here in the 4th. Yankees the last American League team to have at least 4 starters back in 2011. And for more on the All-Star Game and the balloting, downstairs to Ken.
Well, Kenny, I talked to Bob Bowman from Major League Baseball this week, and I said, hey, is this 1957 all over again? Is the commissioner going to need to step in? And he said no. He said there are no shenanigans taking place here. There are a lot more votes than ever before because this is the first online exclusive voting. But he said things are going well. They're checking constantly, and this is just the way the vote is proceeding.
All right, thanks, Ken. McCann grounds out into the shift. Here's Beltran, who bounced to second his first time up. Orioles remain in the shift. The Yankees, Tom, have faced more shifts than any other team this season. 714 coming into this game. Seattle's next at 455. So that's over 250 more shifts faced by Yankee hitters than any other team in baseball.
Well, there's a reason for that. The short porch in Yankee Stadium. Lineup packed with fly ball, left-handed or switch pull hitters. 4 of the top 14 You see the ground ball to first base for the second out. 4 of the top 14 pull hitters by percentage in the American League are in the Yankees lineup. So it's not as if they're facing opponents who figured something out. It's pretty obvious. This team, it's all about pulling the baseball, including this guy who doesn't even have much power.
Gregoria struck out his first time up back in the second inning. Bud Norris has retired 7 in a row since the Drew double back in the second.
Saw Bud Norris go back inside there. That's the pitch he got him out on. One thing, Kenny, in this league, there are no secrets. There's an area down here, right down below there. Didi just has a hole right there. Has seen 122 pitches in that area down and in. 0 hits.
On one hop, fielded by Hardy. Yankees retired in order on 8 pitches in the 4th. Bottom of the 4th inning in Baltimore, tied at 2. Matt Wieters steps in to lead off against CC Sabathia. Wieters flies to left his first time up. And he fouls off the first pitch to the right side, 0-1. 6th game back for Wieters, coming off Tommy John surgery just under a year ago, last June 17th.
And they asked the bench coach, John Russell, well, how's he throwing? So, well, nobody's run on him yet. But no, he's got the arm strength back. There's the Bucks right-hand man. Of course, they measure catchers by their pop time. The pop when the pitch hits the glove, to the seconds elapsed when the ball pops into the infielder's glove at second base. And they've had Matt Wieters as low as 1.77.
Wow.
It's crazy fast. 1.9 is really good.
J.J. Hardy on deck. Tied at 2. Nolan Reimold with a 2-run homer in the third after the Yankees took a 2-0 lead in the first. A 1-2 from Sabathia. Right center, long run for Williams. And he makes the catch on the warning track up against the wall. What a play. Mason Williams in his second major league game.
Look at the quick reaction by Mason Williams. Takes his eye off the ball just to find the fence early on and goes headlong into the fence. How he caught this ball and hung on to the ball is amazing.
Just like his dad running under a throw from Tony Eason back in 1985 with the Patriots.
And then getting hit. Now they saw, you could see in the overhead shot, he was shaded a little bit towards that side of the field. Against Wieters, good power the other way, and the off-speed pitch driving out there, but my goodness, did he close ground on that.
Williams will remain in the game after making a sensational catch to rob Matt Wieters of an extra base hit. Williams, as we take one more look.
Wants to jump, and now watch him take a quick look to know where he is, and now he picks up the baseball again. Fearless.
Not only did his dad spend 3 seasons in the NFL, his great uncle Walt was an 11-year major leaguer, including 2 seasons with the Yankees. But he never played a home game at Yankee Stadium. Walt Williams finished his career with the Yankees in '74 and '75. Those were the 2 years they played at Shea Stadium. Ripped foul off the bat of Hardy. 0-2. His uncle Walt also played for Houston, the White Sox, the Indians from '64 through '75.
Again, CeCe trying to get that inside corner. He hasn't been successful, but that's Jerry Meals, very consistent behind the plate. That better be over the dish to get it called. And once again, that's a little off the plate. A lot of the umpires today, based on the grading system, they'll give you a baseball, the width of a baseball on either side of the plate. Jerry Meals very consistent with his zone. That has to get over the dish.
Bounce to the right side. Drew charging. Makes the play for out number 2. We spoke with Joe Girardi between innings, and we asked him about the 2 Yankee runs back in the first, scoring from second and first.
Yeah, we have. And it's not easy to score from first with some of our guys, but we got a break. The ball kicked off the wall and allowed Tex to score. Good base running.
You got a bad break when the ball landed on the track on the foul ball. What's been going on communication-wise defensively?
Yeah, I mean, it's just these 2 guys, the 2 guys chasing the ball are in a dead sprint, and obviously, they didn't hear each other, and they let it drop, and it led to a 2-run homer, and it's unfortunate.
You've been in first place for 46 out of the last 50 days. What's pleased you the most about your team this season?
Well, I think how we've bounced back after some tough stretches. I mean, we had one the first 10 days of the season. Then when we went through another one, and we bounced back and won 7 straight games, and now we've lost a couple, and we need to bounce back tonight.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, guys.
Joe Girardi's Yankees with a half-game lead on the Tampa Bay Rays, who won their game earlier today. Tied 2-2 with the Orioles, bottom of the 4th inning. 1-1 to Pierce. Lifted to deep left center. Williams on the warning track makes the catch up against the wall. What an inning for the rookie center fielder Mason Williams as he robbed Matt Wieters of a base hit to start the inning. Williams at bat second when we return. Fifth inning in Baltimore. Kenny Albert, Tom Verducci, Ken Rosenthal. Stephen Drew leads off for the Yankees against Bud Norris in a 2-2 game. Drew doubled to right center his first time up. Since then, Norris has retired 8 consecutive Yankees. One from Norris, missing high and away. 2 balls, 1 strike. We welcome those of you who have been watching the Cubs and the Reds, currently in a rain delay with the Cubs ahead 3-1. Kenny Albert, Tom Verducci, Ken Rosenthal from Camden Yards in Baltimore. Top of the 5th inning. Yankees and Orioles tied at 2. Yankees scored 2 runs in the top of the 1st inning. Orioles came back with a 2-run homer off the bat of Nolan Reimold off CC Sabathia in the 3rd. As Stephen Drew flies out to Adam Jones in center for out number 1.
Center fielder, number 63, Mason Williams.
So now Mason Williams will bat for the 2nd time. Struck out in the 2nd inning. He made his major league debut for the Yankees yesterday. Hit a home run. And in the last half inning, Tom made a spectacular catch to rob Matt Wieters of an extra base hit.
Yeah, I guess the other one was just, what, an A- maybe? 2 catches. He probably ran a total distance of, well, certainly more than 200 feet. Covering a lot of ground.
Williams, 23 years of age, born in Pawtucket, moved to Florida after 7th grade.
Well, the beauty of StatCast is you can tell us exactly how much ground he covered. Check this out, 114 feet.
Wow.
Well, just imagine that, people. Longer than the distance between the bases. That's how much ground he covered, and knowing that he was closing in on the fence.
We've spoken about his dad, Derwin, who was a wide receiver for the New England Patriots. His great uncle, Walt, 11 seasons in the major leagues.
And known for one of the best nicknames in baseball history, No Neck Williams.
Right.
You know, I wanted to bring that up. I thought maybe it was another Walt Williams, but Walt No Neck Williams, how could you forget? I remember all those baseball cards I had of him. You didn't have to wonder why he had the nickname.
Stood only 5'6". The brother of Mason's grandfather. Mason's great uncle, Walt No Neck Williams.
You know, Kenny, that's one of the things that's missing in today's game. Really good nicknames. I'll tell you one, a guy who's got one, though, who's in the game today, Bud Norris, our pitcher. It's not his given name, Bud. He actually got his name when he tried to order a beer at a Mexican restaurant. He was 3 years old at the time.
He waited that long.
And he became Bud. Bud just broke off a nasty power slider right there.
Fifth strikeout for Bud Norris. He's retired 10 in a row.
Yeah, and he's in typical Bud Norris mode right now, and that is attack mode. Highly competitive, highly aggressive. Now mixing in those changeups. And he loves pitching in this beautiful yard.
Frank Robinson in Baltimore earlier today.
That is nasty. When you start getting check swings from left-handed hitters on a slider, that's telling you Brett Gardner's seeing fastball for 50 feet. And the last 10 feet tricked you. That's a slider. See you later.
The 1-2 on the ground to the second baseman, Flaherty. So it's the third straight 1-2-3 inning for David Norris, better known as Bud. Coast is sponsored by Chevrolet. Find new roads. Our Budweiser game summary with Bud Norris on the mound for the Orioles. Yankees scored 2 in the first. Nolan Reimold with a 2-run shot in the third after he popped one up into foul territory and it dropped in between McCann and Teixeira. A reprieve for Reimold, and he took Sabathia deep. Ryan Flaherty leads off for the Orioles here in the bottom of the 5th. Struck out, stranding 2 base runners back in the 2nd inning. Flaherty, Machado, and Reimold for the Orioles here in the 5th. Base hit into right center. Leadoff man on for the Orioles for the 3rd time in 5 innings. Time for a game break to Kevin Burkhardt in Los Angeles. All right, thanks, Kevin. Mets hanging on. They lead the Nationals by a half game in the NL East. 9 strikeouts for Jacob deGrom in 7 innings today, allowed only 1 run. Flaherty, the runner on first. Here's Manny Machado. Singled in the 3rd, came around to score on the Reimold homer. Machado heating up, 8 hits his last 18 at bats. And speaking of the Nationals, Tom, we mentioned earlier this is Machado's 350th Major League game. Bryce Harper will not turn 23 until mid-October. He's played in 418 games.
And he finally faced a pitcher who was younger than himself.
Right.
All it took was more than 1,700 plate appearances.
Jacob Lindgren of the Yankees earlier this week, who was sent out today. Yankees made a couple of roster moves. Esmail Rogers and Lindgren now off the Yankees roster. They recall the ex-White Sox closer Sergio Santos as well as Jose Ramirez.
This is the first time we've really seen Sabathia lose the zone a little bit. 2-0 to Flaherty, now 3-1 to Machado. 2 hitters counts. I've always said the most important time in a baseball game, you see Santos there loosening up, is 3rd time around for the starter.
Machado with a drive, deep left center, into the bullpen, home run. Manny Machado, his 11th of the season, 4-2 Orioles.
Yep, danger time. That's when bullpen phones get in use. Hitters count, aggressive swinging team. Dangerous recipe for CC Sabathia. 2-0 single, 3-1 homer.
Reimold homered his last time up back in the 3rd inning. So a pair of 2-run shots, and the Orioles have their first lead of the night.
Just amazing how often it comes into play in baseball in 2015, the 3rd time around for starting pitchers.
One and two on Reimold.
Well, that's not to suggest in any way that Sabathia is any way done or the tank is too low, you need to get him out. It's just that's when the danger seems to happen. A team like Tampa Bay Rays looks at these metrics And they err on the side of getting pitchers out early.
Reimold with a blast. This time Williams unable to make the catch. Around second, headed for third, Reimold. And he is hit with his second extra base hit in 3 innings.
Well, Mason Williams can't believe he didn't catch this ball, but again, runs a long way. Watch him, he started to cross. Now he has to go a little bit deeper. I think this ball fooled him off the bat. Just not there in time.
Larry Rothschild out for a visit with Sabathia, who was allowed a single, a home run, and a triple here in the 5th inning.
Yeah, Kitty, I think that ball carried more on Williams than he thought. It looked like he thought he had a read on that early in the route, and then suddenly had to readjust.
The always dangerous Adam Jones, 1 for 2 tonight.
Now the Yankees bring the infield not all the way in, but aggressively in.
First pitch, Gregorius. Jones retired.
And now I expect they'd come in a little closer with the 1 out here. Teams generally they'll have different depths of bringing infield in, a 1, 2, or 3. You saw them last time at a 2, mid-depth. I think with 1 out, you played at 3. You play a little more aggressively now that you have 1 out in hand. No outs, guarding against the huge inning.
There's Machado, hit his 11th of the season earlier in the inning. After the leadoff single off the bat of Flaherty. Delman Young swings at the first pitch, fouls it off. 0-1. Young is 0 for 2 tonight. Fifth time in 13 starts this season in which Sabathia has allowed it multiple home runs.
Robbie Thompson, the bench coach of the Yankees, just backed up Gregorius a little bit. You know, Reimold not an especially quick runner at third base. You can afford to take another step or 2 back, which is what Gregorius has done.
Davis on deck. 1-1 to Young, missing inside. 2 balls, 1 strike. '85th pitch from Sabathia is ripped foul. Down the left field line, now 2-2.
Nice footwork by Paul Emmel. Skipping rope. Check this out. This is a laser that's tracking him. Oh, y'all set that to music. That was pretty.
Top of the order. Doing the damage for the Orioles tonight. After they scored 11 runs against the Yankees last night in the series opener. Full count.
Delman Young, known for his aggressiveness, showing patience in this at bat. CC tried to get him to chase the changeup. Of course, Delman Young, a fantastic fastball hitter. No reason to give in here, though.
Gregorius looks Ronald back to third. Now 2 away.
That's a great job by a veteran pitcher. Using the breaking ball to almost get out of jail. Still one more out to go.
Jose Ramirez recalled earlier today up in the Yankee pen. Yankees, of course, without their closer Andrew Miller, the ex-Oriole, placed on the disabled list earlier this week. Dellin Betances now the closer. Chris Davis 1 for 2. Struck out his last time up.
I think the only danger with this shift on Chris Davis is if Teixeira has to go get a slowly hit ball to his right, because Sabathia has a very tough time getting over to the bag in time. Once again, Chris Davis doesn't hit a lot of ground balls, but if he does top one, that will be difficult for Sabathia to get over.
Now the 0-2 to Davis. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Teixeira over for a chat with Sabathia. Flaherty with a leadoff single. Machado 2-run homer. Rival tripled. And now Sabathia has induced ground balls to the shortstop from Jones and Young. A 1-2 to Davis. Now 2 balls, 2 strikes.
You saw Sabathia has to come back with a U-turn. He thought for sure he had strike 3. Once again, we talked about Jerry Meals' strike zone. Does he grab a piece of this on the inside corner? CeCe didn't even bother looking for the call. He thought it was a strike all the way.
There's strike 3. So Sabathia out of the inning. Reimold stranded on third. Machado took Sabathia deep. His 11th of the season. Orioles lead 4-2 through 5. Tonight's telecast is sponsored by the Dodge Brothers. 100 years later, their spirit lives on. And by Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Getting hungry, Tom?
It's funny that you mentioned that, Kenny. You know, I think when I, talked up, and rightly so, Boog's Barbecue, I think the executive chef here at Camden Yards heard about it. And food has been delivered to the press box.
Yes, it has.
The challenge is on.
Statistician Marty Aronoff may help us out. Chase Headley leading off for the Yankees, and a base hit into right field to start the 6th inning. Second hit of the game for Headley. And Norris had retired 11 in a row since the 2nd inning. What a career for A-Rod. In particular here at Camden Yards. 32 home runs. 272 hits against the Orioles. Most against any team. 201 runs batted in. The only team he's hit more home runs against than the Orioles, the Angels. 70 against the Angels for A-Rod. 63 against the Orioles. And keep in mind, he is 1 RBI shy of 2,000. A number that has been reached by only one player in history. And that's Hank Aaron.
Well, that's since the RBI became an official stat in, I think, 1920. So all those runs that the Babe knocked in prior to 1920, we're not counting those, right? I don't get that. But, I talked about how Alex's power has diminished recently. You see Norris get this ball elevated above the hands, threw it by him. But he still is having quality at bats. 1 home run in the last 78 at bats. But still seeing the ball very well, taking the walks when he's not challenged.
He's grounded out twice to the third baseman, Machado. He recently passed both Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig on the RBI list. The Babe with 1992, Gehrig 1993.
And this is clearly, as we said before, challenge mode from Bud Norris. Can go a couple of ways here. Can go to the slider or elevate a little higher with the fastball. And it's going to be the heat.
Here it comes, the 1-2. Rodriguez gets the bat on it and fouls it off. So the count remains 1 ball, 2 strikes. Nobody out. Headley with a leadoff single off Norris here in the 6th. Deep center field. Jones back on the warning track. It's gone. Alex Rodriguez ties the game. RBIs number 2,000 and 2001 of his major league career. It's his 12th home run of the season. We are tied at 4.
I'm surprised at the pitch, Kenny. Tied him up with the fastball in. I thought he would go fastball up to elevate it above the hands. An outside belt high is the pitch that this guy eats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So Alex Rodriguez becomes the 2nd player in Major League history to drive in at least 2,000 runs since the RBI became an official statistic in 1920.
He's shaking his head. He can't believe it. That may be a case where the nature of Bud Norris to continue on attack and to challenge worked against him.
Only the 5th home run allowed by Norris this season. 3 of the 5 off Yankee bats. A-Rod took him deep here at Camden Yards back on April 15th. It's also career hit number 2,995. And out to Shara into the right field corner off the out-of-town scoreboard. Teixeira in at second with his second hit of the game.
The fastball and the extension of the arms of Alex Rodriguez in a beautiful swing. See where the ball is? That's right in his nitro zone. The extension with the arms, the easy power. Hit more than 600. You know when they're out, especially in this yard where he just loves to rake. You know, Kenny, watching the smile on Alex's face, flashback a couple of innings to Manny Machado and the smile on his face. Doesn't matter whether you're 22 or you're 39 going on 40 or you're 6 in Little League. The feeling never gets old.
Career home run number 666 for Alex Rodriguez, his 33rd in this ballpark. Brian McCann 1 for 2, doubled in a run back in the first inning. A very exclusive list.
Just the numbers are mind-boggling. Seems like every day, every swing of the bat, he's passing some historic Hall of Famer. Of course, because of his association with PEDs, serving the longest drug suspension in baseball history, Hall of Fame, not a title that will be associated with Alex Rodriguez the way the voting has gone.
Now the throw to third, and the tag on Teixeira. So Pierce able to fire across to Machado for out number 1.
What a spectacular play by Pierce. The backhand, knowing who's running, and he throws a bullet to third base. You see Teixeira get up like, where did that come from? You think as a runner, ground ball hit the other way, I'm crossing over to third. Not so fast. It's like speeding down the highway and there's a trooper behind a bush somewhere. Where did he come from?
Terrific play by Pierce. It's a fielder's choice. McCann on at first. Orioles shift against Beltran, who is 0 for 2. He's grounded out twice to the right side. Sends this one into center field. The catch is made by Jones for out number 2.
Well, you're better off trying somewhere else in the outfield. If it's in the air, there's a good chance this guy's going to get it. Gold Glover Adam Jones.
Gregorius 0 for 2. Bud Norris was sailing along. He retired 11 straight until the Headley leadoff single here in the 6th, followed by the Alex Rodriguez 2-run home run. TJ McFarland up in the Orioles pen. Yankees with 7 hits in the game, 5 have gone for extra bases.
And once again, Kenny, when that lineup turns over a third time against the starting pitcher, batting average, OPS, slugging percentage, all go up.
Gregorius with a base hit into the right field corner. McCann on his way to third. Throw comes into second. Gregorius safe. Yankees have second and third with 2 outs.
This looked like that kind of nothing slider, trying to get it down and in that hole we talked about with Gregorius, but it stayed up over the middle of the plate for Gregorius. And the play by Steve Pierce, as beautiful as it was, looks even more important right now. Second, third, 2 outs.
So that will be all for Bud Norris, who retired 11 straight from the 2nd through the 5th, but ran into trouble here in the 6th. As A-Rod took him deep. Tied at 4. T.J. McFarland in from the Orioles pen. '26-year-old left-hander T.J. McFarland on to make his 10th appearance of the season for the Orioles with runners on 2nd and 3rd, 2 outs. Stephen Drew at the plate in a 4-4 game. McCann, Gregorius. Yankees scored 2 in the 1st. Orioles would take a 4-2 lead. Alex Rodriguez tied it with a 2-run shot here in the 6th. Norris went 5 2/3 through 86 pitches, responsible for the 2 base runners. No walks, struck out 5, and allowed 1 home run.
And that's the pitch out of the 86 that he will remember most. 1-2 fastball to Alex Rodriguez.
The 2-1 from McFarland, missing low and inside, now 3-1.
Drew, who likes the ball up, doing a good job staying off those sliders from McFarland. It's his best pitch. Drew's not fishing. Again, base open for McFarland. Williams on deck. He can throw another slider if he wants. Doesn't have to get into the zone with it.
Drew draws a walk, so he will head down to first. Yankees have loaded the bases here in the 6th. Our coverage of the FIFA Women's World Cup continues Monday as Thailand takes on Germany on your local Fox affiliate. Then the Netherlands squares off against the host country Canada on Fox Sports 1. Then on Tuesday, Team USA continues their quest for a 3rd World Cup title as they take on Nigeria back on your local Fox affiliate. Catch the whole tournament streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Yankees send out a pinch hitter, Chris Young, to bat for Williams. And now Buck Showalter out to the mound. Here comes Chaz Rowe from the Orioles pen. Bases loaded, 2 outs, top of the 6th. By Microsoft Surface and by the new movie Max, in theaters everywhere, June 26th. Four game in Baltimore. Bases loaded for the Yankees with 2 outs, top of the 6th inning. The 28-year-old right-hander Chaz Rowe, who pitched in 3 games for the Yankees last September, on in relief of T.J. McFarland, with Chris Young, who has one of 3 Yankee grand slams this season, on to pinch hit for Mason Williams.
And Showalter still got a matchup that he likes. Chris Young 147 against right-handed pitchers, and Chaz Rowe, his features a slider that is a wipeout pitch against right-handers.
First pitch to Young, in for a called strike.
Of course, the only difficulty on the right-on-right matchup is pitching with the bases loaded. Nowhere to go, has to throw strikes. Chris Young rarely hits the ball to the right side of the field. He wants to catch the ball out in front of him, out in front of the plate.
The 0-1 from Rowe, 0-2.
Fastball underneath the bat of Young.
McCann, Gregorius, and Drew, the Yankee base runners. Chris Young, 3 for 5 as a pinch hitter this season. The 0-2 from Rowe, missing away, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Good hold right there by Young. Hadn't seen the slider yet. First time he sees it, it's 0-2 right off the plate. Doesn't bite.
2-2.
That's a big pitch because that was a ball right out of the hand, unlike the one pitched before. That didn't tempt Young at all. Now he's got himself back into the count. Monroe doesn't want to go to a full count with the bases loaded. Pressure back on the pitcher.
Young, the 8th Yankee to bat this inning.
And that's the difference, Kenny. Throwing a pitch, a slider where you don't want to throw a ball. This slider is in the zone the entire time. Normally a slider, you want to start it in the zone, present it as a strike, and let it get it out of the zone. Bases loaded. Rules of engagement change.
Adam Jones moving to his right. Yankees strand 3 in the 6th, but they tie the game. Major League Baseball on Fox, brought to you by Chevrolet, the official vehicle of Major League Baseball. Yankees and Orioles tied at 4, bottom of the 6th inning. Chris Young remains in the game in left field for the Yankees. Brett Gardner moves from left to center. And 6'8" right-hander Chris Martin on in relief of CC Sabathia. 16th appearance for Martin this season. Sabathia went 5 innings, allowed 4 runs on 8 hits. Will not be involved in the decision, nor will Orioles starter Bud Norris.
How many pitchers does it take to get through a major league season? Well, about almost 700. Where do you find them all? Well, sometimes you find them in an appliance store. That's the story of Chris Martin. Hurt his arm in college and really was not playing baseball at all for a couple of years out of college. He went working at an appliance store in Texas. He actually said that moving the appliances, stocking shelves, it's good rehab for his shoulder. One day he played catch with a buddy. Found out he was throwing 93, 94. Got a shot in independent ball signed by the Red Sox, and here he is with the Yankees.
Are they tossing baseballs or appliances? Here's Matt Wieters leading off against Martin. You saw Jason Shreve up in the Yankees pen. Wieters 0 for 2, robbed by Mason Williams his last time up in center field. Williams out of the game after he was pinch hit for by Chris Young.
But Kenny, the last 2 half innings, bottom of the 5th, top of the 6th, instructive on why so many relief pitchers are needed. Starting pitchers just not pitching as deep. Third time around, got both Sabathia and Norris. Both managers going into the bullpen probably earlier than they would wish.
Wieters batting against the shift. Now 3-0.
This is where you go ahead and green light him right here. Keyhole something, fastball, inner half. And he's taking all the way. And see, I'd rather have him swing. To me, Matt Wieters gets on base. You need 2 more hits to get him in, even if he is on base leading off an inning. I try to get the one right there. Scoring position in the batter's box at 3-0.
Left center. It will roll to the wall. Extra bases for Matt Wieters. He is in with a stand-up double.
Well, Matt Wieters said, you know what? I can get the same pitch 3-1 that I saw at 3-0. Maybe not inner half, but he knows what to do with the fastball away. Great piece of hitting to get into a hitter's count and not try to do too much with it.
Our Geico 8-game box score. 2 hits for Machado and Rimal. They have both hit 2-run shots. Orioles scored 2 in the 3rd, 2 in the 5th. Leadoff man on here in the 6th for the 4th time tonight. Orioles leadoff man reached base 6 times in 8 innings last night.
And J.J. Hardy has 1 hit all year swinging at first pitch. He never does, but he tried there to move the runner over to 3rd. That's his job right here, and he was trying to take advantage of something that's not in his comfort zone, swinging first pitch.
Hardy has grounded out twice. Takes strike 2.
You know, Kenny, I've been watching Mark Teixeira over there at first base. He's got revenge on his mind. He knows he has a slow runner on second base. He's been creeping in. Any ground ball hit over there, I'm going to get you back. It's payback time.
Following the terrific throw made by Pierce in the last half inning. Pitch gets away from McCann. Wieters now at 3rd.
This looked like a slider here. Yep, it's just going to not really bounce. It's in front of the plate, and it skips more than it bounces. Goes right through the wickets. So now Hardy's job changes, and looking for something that he can elevate and field in again.
Yankees have thrown the most wild pitches in the American League, and now a base hit up the middle. Scoring Wieters. Orioles back on top. They lead 5-4. 10th run batted in of the season for J.J. Hardy.
Well, not a crisp inning from Martin. Really, the danger began falling 3-0 to his first hitter. Wieters with the double on 3-1. A wild pitch. A nice piece of hitting by Hardy to score Wieters.
6-game hitting streak for Hardy. Drives in the go-ahead run. Here's Pierce, 1 for 2 tonight. Another look at Shreve in the Yankee pen. Steve Pierce, a Yankee, briefly back in 2012, appeared in 12 games.
He's got a similar approach to Chris Young. Wants to hit the ball out in front of him. Martin's job, speed him up with the fastball, slow him up with the slider.
Right field, coming on is Beltran. 1 out.
That's exactly what he did, and he got away from a poorly located slider, but the sequence is what got him the out.
Second baseman, number 3, Flaherty.
Ryan Flaherty struck out with 2 on in the second and then led off the 5th inning with a base hit. Would score on the Machado home run. First pitch from Martin is fouled off to the left side. 0-1.
By the way, Kenny, what's the verdict on the executive chef in the chef versus Boog battle? Did pretty well, didn't he?
A+.
A little crab meat with some Old Bay seasoning.
And then chips with whipped cream and chocolate in the other basket.
Yeah, I haven't gone there yet, but crab meat with the Old Bay, that is a local delicacy, of course. Old Bay actually began back. There used to be so many crabs around here that they would give them away at bars. It's gone back almost 100 years. And what they would do is they had Old Bay there as seasoning, salty flavor, right? So you would drink more. Kind of like popcorn and peanuts at the ballpark, right? You need something to wash it down with. And you go anywhere basically around here in the Baltimore area, and like ketchup and mustard, you'll find Old Bay out there.
Buy me some Old Bay and Cracker Jacks.
That is true local flavor.
Up the middle, base hit. Ryan Flaherty. Moving to second is Hardy. 3rd hit of the inning for the Orioles. All right, here you go, Tom.
I'm going to use a 4.
I was giving this one to you.
That's some good stuff.
Chips, chocolate, whipped cream.
It is amazing the food you can find at a ballpark. Anything you want.
As the culinary discussion continues, Manny Machado steps in with 2 on, 1 out. Machado 2 for 3, gave the Orioles a 4-2 lead with a 2-run homer in the 5th inning. But the Yankees would tie the score in the top of the 6th on an 8-run 2-run homer before the Orioles regain the lead here in the bottom half.
Of course, when Manny was drafted, the comparison Another Miami-born shortstop, Alex Rodriguez.
Another pitch gets away from McCann. Both runners advance.
Well, there's no chance on this slider. The ball, a tight spin. It's going to bounce opposite to the spin direction. Did the best he could, but again, the ball bouncing in front of the plate, a longer bounce on a harder spin. And the Yankees add to that league-leading total of wild pitches, free bases. There's a lot of chatter in that Yankee dugout. You might have heard, where is it?
Directed at the home plate umpire, Jerry Meals. Base hit right field. Hardy scores. Here comes Pierce. The throw is cut off. And at second is Machado. Orioles lead 7-4.
Well, earlier we saw the stop sign on a 2-out single to left field. This is an easy send with Beltran in right field. See the inside-out swing really gets jammed here and fisted into the outfield. Watch how long it takes Beltran to get to the ball. And then the throw here, really this is not even thrown hard enough to Teixeira to get the out at second base. Really, Machado should almost be giving himself up to make sure the run scores. There's an out in play here if the ball is well thrown to Teixeira. But it takes too long to get there on the bounce, and the rally continues.
Reibel takes strike one. Homered in the third, tripled in the fifth. Orioles in the last inning of the third, 5 runs on 7 hits. Top 2 in the Orioles order, Machado and Reibel, have combined to drive in 6 of the 7 Baltimore runs. Machado with his 5th career 4 RBI game.
And he had some designs about taking third base there. Martin's so locked in now trying to get an out.
Gregorius. 2 out.
Watch Machado on this base hit. He knows he's got at least 1 RBI. He's cheered himself. Now he said, I got to get back in business here. The throw almost hits him. That is an adventurous 180 feet for Mr. Machado.
Adam Jones 1 for 3, singled back in the first inning. Orioles 3 runs on 4 hits here in the 6th. As Jones fouls off the first pitch from Martin, 0-1.
You sure Machado's 22? You're sure about that?
For another couple of weeks. He will turn 23 on the 6th of July. And then in late July, Alex Rodriguez will turn 40.
Well, I never thought the comparison was actually a direct one between Alex and Manny Machado, just because Manny, to me, much more of a line drive hitter. I don't think, as a lot of people speculated, that he's going to be a 30 home run guy. I really love his stroke. I think it's a very level swing, great plate coverage, but I don't see it translating into 30 home runs. He doesn't need to be, obviously. He's a terrific player, as is. Different kind of ball player.
Two and two on Jones with 2 outs, bottom of the 6th inning. Orioles with 3 in the 6th against Martin. Lead the Yankees 7-4.
Let's see if Brian McCann goes back to the high fastball here. Martin's giving him workout on those sliders in the dirt, trying to change the eye level on Jones throughout this at bat.
He's thrown 2 wild pitches in the inning. This will be his 27th pitch. And Jones fouls off another one.
Well, to me, this is where pitch counts do matter. You see a hot, humid night, and every one of those 27 pitches for Martin has been a stress pitch. Adam Jones had the reaction of, I missed that one. Hope he throws again.
In the dirt, Machado to third. Third wild pitch of the inning thrown by Martin.
All on sliders, and in that one he lost his footing. The landing foot goes out from under him. Not able to finish the pitch, and again the slider in front of the plate.
Jones, center field. Coming on to make the catch is Gardner to end the inning. But the Orioles score 3 off Martin. Now lead the Yankees through 6, 7-4. It's the reality competition that's out of control because the stunts are out of hand. You've got to see it to believe it. Hosted by Kellen Lutz. And it's a pure adrenaline rush. Catch it all new Bullseye Wednesday at 9, 8 Central, right here on Fox. Brett Gardner, the only Yankee who did not come to the plate in the 6th inning, leads off against Chaz Rowe here in the 7th after Chris Martin allowed 3 runs on 4 hits. In the bottom of the 6th, he threw 3 wild pitches. 0-2 on Gardner, who is 0 for 3 tonight.
Not a record, by the way. 3 wild pitches in 1 inning. 4 has been done a few times, last by R.A. Dickey. Not a surprise, the knuckleball pitcher.
Gardner strikes out on 3 pitches, 1 away.
And here's that slider with a big break on it. It's got a big downward break more than a late tilt. Buck Showalter looking for stability, stabilize the game with Chaz Rowe out there. A little bit short in his bullpen tonight because of the suspension to Brian Mattis, the left-hander.
So in the final game of his 8-game suspension tonight.
And against the Yankees with all these left-handed hitters, you want to pack that bullpen with lefties. Well, having used McFarland, Showalter is down to 1 lefty, and that's his closer, Zach Britton.
Chase Headley 2 for 3 tonight. The Orioles starter Bud Norris went 5 2/3. He allowed 4 runs on 8 hits, no walks, struck out 5. TJ McFarland faced 1 batter. Rowe has retired both Yankees he has faced. Alex Rodriguez on deck. 1 out, top of the 7th inning. The 2-1 to Headley, and he fouls it back. Now 2-2. Against the shift, a base hit into left field. 3rd hit of the night for Headley. Well, Alex Rodriguez back on May 7th at Yankee Stadium against the Orioles, passing Willie Mays, career home run number 661. Just over a month later, earlier tonight here at Camden Yards, it's career homer 666, but of more significance, he becomes the 2nd player in Major League history with at least 2,000 runs batted in.
Now what, just 5 hits short of 3,000 for the career.
Do you think A-Rod will be in Cincinnati on July 14th?
Wow, that's a great question. Again, I would have never thought that was even possible. Any discussion, if you rewind to spring training, about this guy in consideration for the All-Star game, I would have had you have a drug test on this guy. But here he is, and give him credit. He's worked hard to get back. I think he's handled things the right way. And Kenny, I really see in his approach at the plate something I haven't seen for a few years. He's relaxed. There's no tension in the body, in the stance, the swing. And what he told me was, I feel like I'm a young player back in Seattle again, keeping things simple, not trying to force anything. And certainly you saw that on the home run swing. 2-strike approach, and a bomb to right center.
The 1-2 from Rowe. What do you think, Ken Rosenthal? Will A-Rod be an all-star?
Well, guys, the fascinating question to me is who will vote him in. He currently is a distant 3rd in the fan balloting at DH behind Kendrys Morales and Nelson Cruz. Then you go to the player balloting, and players have decidedly mixed feelings about A-Rod. And if he doesn't get in there, then it would be the manager's selection in conjunction with Major League Baseball. Now, Rob Manfred, the commissioner, has been very clear, saying that A-Rod served his penalty. He is a member of baseball in good standing, but it would be really interesting to see who picked him.
Second strikeout for Rowe, now 2 away.
Yeah, that might be tough. You see the fastball again. That was a pitch I thought Norris would go to, the elevated fastball with some run on it. But it might be tough. You think about if Morales does win the vote. Prince Fielder certainly having an all-star season. Really should be there. Where else do you go? Is there another spot? It's so hard to put these rosters together. As Kenny alluded to, with the votes from the players, the fans, every team having to be represented. Numbers may work against them, but certainly he's in the conversation.
So is Mark Teixeira.
Absolutely. How about we ask Alex to go to the home run derby? People might be interested in that. I think he should go old guard versus new guard, 25 and under versus 26 and older, because we have a crop of great young hitters coming into this game, power hitters. Once again, the devilish check swing. What's a check swing and what isn't? Well, I guess that one was.
On one hop, Teixeira is thrown out to end the inning. 7th inning stretch time in Baltimore. Is sponsored by 10-2, starring Mark Wahlberg and Seth MacFarlane, in theaters June 26th. And by Budweiser, make a plan to make it home. Bottom of the 7th inning here at Camden Yards. Sergio Santos will make his Yankees debut. 30 saves for the White Sox back in 2011. 12 relief appearances for the Dodgers this season. Signed to a minor league contract by the Yankees this past Wednesday.
Yeah, you see the numbers with the Dodgers didn't work out for him there. He's had some injuries the last few seasons, the former closer. Definitely closer stuff. Sometimes, though, command, walks can be an issue.
David Lowe pinch hitting for Delman Young. They're in the bottom of the 7th inning with the Orioles leading 7-4. We mentioned earlier that Hall of Famer Frank Robinson was in Baltimore earlier today, and Ken Rosenthal will fill us in.
Well, Kenny, this was a great example of how baseball can connect with the community. Event today in West Baltimore. Players past and present were there to celebrate a youth baseball league, predominantly African American, that's been around for more than 50 years.
David Lowe off the glove of Beltran, and it remains in play. Lowe in at third.
See Beltran, he's actually got one more step to get a little farther back. Amazing that this ball didn't go out. Hits the ledge right there and bounces up in the air. And that is a stand-up triple. And you see Buck Showalter saying, you guys take a look at that. That might have gone out. Well, the first thing they'll do is confer amongst themselves. What did you see? Asking one another.
You think it Nick Beltran's glove or hit directly off the top of the fence?
I thought they hit that ledge behind there and kicked up. I'm not sure why there's not an orange line out there to have a clear demarcation.
So they will go to review. Buck Showalter has challenged 12 calls this season. 6 have been overturned.
See, he's got one more step, so when he jumps, he hits the wall. And I'll be honest with you, it all depends on what the ground rules are for home runs. I'm assuming it has to clear the painted area there. This wall back here. See, this is going to hit this wall back here, and I think this is in play, and this is not the home run line. If that's the case, that ball's in play. And it is. Okay. So that is obviously, it just has to clear the wall. And the painted green area behind it is ball out of play.
So it's a home run for David Lowe, his 2nd of the season. 3rd home run for the Orioles tonight. They now lead 8-4.
Well, that's an umpire's nightmare. Imagine trying to see that in real time. All right, you make the call. No replay at your disposal. What do you think?
Rolled a home run, so the first batter, Sergio Santos, faces as a Yankee, takes him deep. And now Chris Davis grounds out to the first baseman to share one away as we head to Los Angeles for a game break. Kevin Burkhardt. All right, thanks, Kevin. The Orioles have scored 6 runs in the last 2+ innings. They lead the Yankees 8-4. Here's Matt Wieters, doubled and came around to score his last time up.
You know, watching that home run go out too, we've talked a lot about the beauty of this ballpark, and it really did change baseball when it was built a little more than 20 years ago. And the outfield walls, there's no curvature to them at all. It was the first ballpark built with all straight walls since Ebbets Field. And I think they captured some of that old-time look because we went through that cookie cutter era. Concentric half circles demarcating outfield walls. Just one of the finer points of this ballpark that just, to me, it's still the best of the new ballparks. I'll put Fenway and Wrigley a class unto themselves. Those are national treasures, but this one set the template. They got it right. Nobody's topped it yet.
He sure did. Two and two on Wieters, 1 out. Bottom of the 7th inning. Orioles with an 8-4 lead. Base hit right center. Gets past Beltran, rolls to the wall. Wieters with his second double in as many innings. So with Wieters on at second, following his 1-out double, back downstairs to Kent.
All right, Kenny, as I was saying, great example today of how baseball can connect with the community. You see this event organized by the Players Union. Eric Davis there, head of the union. Tony Clark, that's Frank Robinson. This was to celebrate a youth baseball league in West Baltimore. Now, that was the area where there was so much civic unrest earlier this spring. And Tony Clark said that unrest produced a groundswell among players to engage with the community. A groundswell that included, you saw there, Adam Jones, who was very vocal. More than 300 players were in uniform with their families. Just a stirring event in West Baltimore.
Now 2-0 on Hardy. Singled in the go-ahead run against Chris Martin back in the 6th inning.
Got to look at the Frank Robinson statue out there. Yeah, that's so important to me, to baseball, the fact that to grow the game, you really do have to go to the grassroots level. And I applaud the Orioles and the players especially for getting out there.
Gregorius on 1 hop, 2 away.
Because to me, as much as we talk about marketing and things we need to do to continue to grow the game, you need to get the youth playing and interested in baseball. Because I always think once you're introduced to the game at an early age, you're a fan for life. You may go away for a while, but certainly once you have kids or maybe in adulthood you come back to it, that connection to the game, tangible connection early on, that's where the payoff is for Major League Baseball. It's not about marketing and fancy ads. It's about the kids. So I really applaud that, and Adam Jones especially, to me, the definition of a franchise player on and off the field.
Absolutely. He does so much for the community as Pierce drives one into the left field corner. Coming home to score is Wieters. It is now 9-4 Baltimore. 22nd run batted in of the season for Steve Pierce.
Kenny, we talked at the top about a hot-hitting Orioles team, winners of 5 in a row, hitting over 300 in this small stretch. You cannot leave the ball over the center of the plate to a hot-hitting team. They're taking advantage of some hittable pitches this inning.
Orioles have scored 5 runs in an inning and 2/3 against the Yankee bullpen. Martin allowed 3 in the 6th. Santos 2 here in the 7th. Ball 1 to Ryan Flaherty. 11 runs for the Orioles last night. 9 so far tonight. A .419 batting average. 5 home runs.
Getting healthy, Kenny, in more ways than one. Literally getting healthy. Wieters back in the lineup. Jonathan Scope, second baseman, not too far off, but certainly in terms of swinging the bats, this is definitely a club getting healthy, on the right track, on the upswing.
Hardy missed the early portion of the season. Wieters, you mentioned, is back. Reimold is back. Scope working out with Brady Anderson in Florida. They hope to have him back real soon.
And he does too, by the way. Brady's killing him down there. He can't wait to get back, if only to get away from Brady and how hard he works.
He's hit 50. He still thinks he's 30 or 20.
Well, it looks like he's 20. I mean, he can work out these guys into the ground. So Brady, one of the executives with the Orioles, is down there with Jonathan Scope in Florida. It's about 190 degrees every day. Working extremely hard to get that knee back in shape. Actually, Chris Tillman credits Brady Anderson with a lot of credit in turning his career around, working out in the offseason together a few years ago.
Flaherty drives it into left center. Catch is made by Gardner to end the inning. Santos allows 2 runs. Orioles now lead by 5. Follow your favorite team and players all season long with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. At bat is up to the moment, at any moment, with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, StatCast, and more. Get MLB.com at bat now. David Lowe remains in the game in left field for the Orioles. Nolan Reimold moves from left to right. Brian McCann leading off for the Yankees here in the top of the 8th inning. They trail the Orioles 9-4. Orioles have won 5 straight. They swept the Red Sox. First series sweep of the season for the Orioles. McCann smacks a base hit into left field against the shift. Yankees, meanwhile, have lost 2 in a row after a 7-game win streak.
How about this? 0-2 fastball out of the strike zone away. Brian McCann says, "You're going to give me left field? I'll take it." We're down 5. I'll take a base hit anytime, especially down 5.
Carlos Beltran 0 for 3. Charles Rowe has done a nice job for the Orioles. Retired the only man he faced in the 6th, Chris Young, with the bases loaded. And then struck out 2 in the 7th inning, allowed a base hit to Chase Headley. And now Beltran into the right field corner. off the wall, fielded by Reimold. So Beltran held to a long single. Moving to third is McCann. So the Yankees have runners on the corners with nobody out here in the 8th.
This is fastball center cut. Brian McCann had a great read on this ball. He was off right away, gets to third easily. And Reimold, we saw it before. Delman Young got too close to the wall, and the ball skidded by him, caused an extra base. Played that very well to hold Beltran at first base.
Pitching coach Dave Wallace out for a visit with Chaz Rowe. Thursday, the greatest golfers in the world converge on the Pacific Northwest as our coverage of the 115th U.S. Open Championship live from Chambers Bay Golf Course begins at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports 1. Coverage then continues in prime time at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on your local Fox station, and it's all streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Darren O'Day, the right-hander, up in the Orioles pen, with Didi Gregorius at the plate. He's 1 for 3, doubled back in the 6th inning. McCann and Beltran on the corners. Gregorius takes strike 1.
Not sure I'd play at first base holding on Beltran. You see now they're going to back him off, play him behind, put him on his hip pocket, give yourself a little more range at this point. Beltran's not going anywhere, especially with the left-handed hitter up. Give yourself some more range.
McCann and Beltran, the base runners for the Yankees. Just 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position tonight. 3 for 19 in the series. The 1-1 to Gregorius. And he slaps it into left. Low makes the catch. And McCann, who took a couple of steps down the line, retreats to third.
And Lowe was saying, my bad, you got to hit the cutoff, man. McCann's going nowhere. The crowd is going to ooh and ah because it throws all the way to the plate. The danger there is the ball bounces away from Wieters, and you're giving up a free base when McCann's going nowhere.
So with 1 away, here's Stephen Drew. 1 for 2 with a walk. Doubled back in the 2nd inning. Yankees scored 2 in the 1st. Orioles would score 2 in the 3rd. 2 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th. So 4 runs with at least 2 runs for the Orioles tonight. Neither starter will be involved in the decision. CC Sabathia went 5 for the Yankees. Bud Norris 5 2/3 for the Orioles.
Chaz Rowe, the word I used when he came in, stabilized. That's what Buck Showalter wanted. They added some tack-on runs, but he has stabilized the game for a guy career high in innings. 2 in a game. Been able to get him 5 out so far.
The biggest retiring Young on a fly ball to center with the bases loaded in the 6th.
This is kind of a danger pitch right here to Stephen Drew. We've talked about him liking the fastball up, and it looks like a little fatigue setting in on Rowe. Last couple of pitches.
Now 3-1.
And not the same finish to the pitches, not the same command. Taking a little more time between pitches. That's the thing about this Yankees lineup. They can put runs up in a hurry with the home run ball.
Line drive caught, shoveled to first for the double play. Flaherty with the shovel pass out of his glove to Pierce. And that will do it for the Yankees in the 8th. Tonight's telecast is sponsored by Mazda Driving Matters and by Pepsi, the official soft drink of Major League Baseball. Extraordinary moments happen every night in baseball, but on one night they all happen in one place. Don't miss the 86th All-Star Game. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, Tuesday, July 14th, right here on Fox. What a night for Manny Machado. 3 for 4, a home run, 4 runs batted in. Sergio Santos, second inning in his Yankee debut, allowed 2 runs on 3 hits in the 7th.
Well, as Buck Showalter said, we really don't have a prototypical leadoff hitter. They got one now. Manny Machado dropped in there in the first week of May. He's found a home.
Scored 3 runs in last night's game. He's scored twice tonight. And should the Orioles hang on tonight and win this game, Buck Showalter would be all alone in 3rd place in career wins among Oriole managers. Earl Weaver, of course, number 1 on the list. Paul Richards is second. Buck currently tied with Hank Bauer, who played for the Yankees and then managed the Orioles from 64 to 68, won a World Series title in 66. Bauer would be replaced by his first base coach, Earl Weaver, in 1968. But Hank Bauer and Buck Showalter tied for the moment. 407 wins as Orioles skipper. And Buck told us he got to know Hank Bauer a little bit during his days managing the Yankees. Hank Bauer would always show up on Old Timers Day and visit him in the manager's office at Yankee Stadium.
What a treat, huh? When those great legends would come back to Yankee Stadium, and Buck, he's like a fan. Mickey Mantle was his idol, his hero growing up.
Machado sends this one down the left field line. Over to make the catch is Young. One away. He said Mickey Mantle and Old Timers, they would get mobbed by fans and reporters and former teammates and current Yankees, that he would sneak into Buck's office to get some downtime and chat with Buck.
And tell some stories that I'm not sure we can pass along, but certainly tell stories that just, I can't imagine what it'd be like for Buck to sit there and have Mickey in your office just telling stories about the good old days.
Nolan Reimold takes a called strike. One of the turning points in this game, his at bat in the 3rd inning, when he popped one up in foul territory and dropped in between McCann and Teixeira. He would homer on the next pitch to tie the game at 2.
Huge point in the game. Sabathia thought he had a strikeout pitch, or at least a strike on the pitch before, and then the pop up that falls harmlessly. Well, maybe not so harmlessly, because the harm arrived the next pitch on the home run to right field by Reimold. So we saw that statue earlier of Earl Weaver. Watching this Oriole team, Kenny, I thought about another Hall of Fame manager, Sparky Anderson, who used to say the first third of the season, don't pay much attention to it. The good teams start playing well in June. You talk about this team, the Orioles, just now getting to 500, but the arrow pointing up. And make no mistake, this is a very good team that's going to get better as the year goes on.
We talked about the return of Wieters, playing in only a 6th game. Adam Jones refers to Matt Wieters as, quote, our field general. And coming into the game tonight, the Orioles are 5-1 since his return.
Well, Sparky used to tell his great Reds team, just get me to 20-20, 30-30. I'm good with that.
Reimold down on strikes for out number 2.
I think about the Kansas City Royals last year. Who were 50-50. And they go to the 7th game of the World Series.
Orioles 30-30, right where Sparky would want them.
Perfect position. It's a long race.
Their first time at 500 since they were 12-12. Season high 5 wins consecutively. 11-3 last night. They're 4-4 against the Yankees this season after winning 13 of 19 from the Yankees last year. That was the first time the Orioles won the season series against the Yankees since 1997.
A lot of losses in between as well. The Yankees dominating the series up until last year.
The 0-1 to Adam Jones, now 0-2.
But to me, this division, this American League East, I mean, this is like the weather in Texas. You don't like it, just wait. It's going to change. I mean, the Yankees have gone from bad to unstoppable to bad as they have been these last 2 nights, especially on defense. Orioles started well the first 2 weeks, went into a trough, and now here they're back red hot, but not as hot as the Blue Jays.
Jones pops it up. Gregorius is under it. Another win for Toronto. They've gone 10 straight. We head to the 9th here in Baltimore. Insurance MLB All-Star Game ballot now at MLB.com/vote on your computer, tablet, or smartphone. Vote up to 35 times at MLB.com/vote. Darren O'Day on in a non-save situation for the Orioles, his 26th appearance of the season. And he will face a pinch hitter, Garrett Jones. Then Brett Gardner, then Chase Headley. Orioles with a 9-4 lead, top of the 9th inning. Strike one to Jones, who is 2 for 8 as a pinch hitter for the Yankees this season. Four runs, 11 hits for the Yankees. 9 runs, 15 hits for the Orioles. Orioles broke open a 4-4 game with 3 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th. Jones down on strikes, 1 away.
Good pinpoint command from O'Day. This one seems like it's rising because of the low release point. I saw the walks, 4 walks to 29 punch-outs, an idea of the command of Darren O'Day.
Brett Gardner 0 for 4 tonight. Great job by our entire crew here at Camden Yards, led by producer Pete Macheska, director Bill Webb, associate director Aaron Stoikov, broadcast associate Sam Younger. Technical director is Gabe Bell, tech manager Sid Drexler. Marty Aronoff crunching the numbers along with Wayne Fiddleman and Joe Band. Orioles looking to make it 6 consecutive victories. And a loss would drop the Yankees into a first place tie with the Tampa Bay Rays, who won their game earlier today. The Yankees have held at least a share of first place 46 of the last 50 days. Yankee fans can tune in tomorrow on the Yes Network for the final game of this series. Coverage begins at 1 p.m. Adam Warren will take the mound for the Yankees against TBA for the Orioles.
That guy gets around, TBA.
Buck Showalter had a number of different scenarios depending on what pitchers he had to use in tonight's game.
He didn't have to use Mike Wright, so he's available if you want to go in that direction.
To Gardner, O'Day missing away, and the count is full.
And the Yankees pitcher Adam Warren pitching with some extra rest thrown in there, as Yankees no different than any other team, trying to beg, borrow, and steal innings for young pitchers. Now entering a stretch here, day 2 of 20 consecutive days playing games, trying to build in some extra rest. Didn't work so well last night with Michael Pineda.
Ball 4 to Gardner. 1 out base runner for the Yankees here in the 9th.
Third baseman, number 12, Cincinnati.
Zach Britton, the Orioles closer. 17 saves on the season. Chase Headley with 3 hits tonight. He has scored 2 of the Yankees' 4 runs. Fouls it back, 0-1.
Saw a shot of Steve Pearce holding Gardner on once again. I'm putting a premium on defending an area, range, over defending a runner.
Right field coming on is Reimold to make the catch for out number 2. Alex Rodriguez back in the 6th inning, a 2-run shot, which tied the game at 4. Rodriguez becoming the 2nd player in Major League history to drive in 2,000 runs. Yankees down to their final out. Rodriguez now 5 hits shy of 3,000. Following tomorrow's game, Yankees will play their next 4 against the Miami Marlins. 2 in Miami, and then 2 at Yankee Stadium as Rodriguez continues his chase of 3,000.
So you're saying he becomes a pinch hitter? National League rules.
Rodriguez 0 for 6 lifetime against Darren O'Day. 1 ball, 2 strike count. The 2-2 from O'Day. Rodriguez strikes out. Orioles win their 6th in a row. And Buck Showalter is now all alone in 3rd place on the all-time wins list for Orioles managers. Yankees lose their 3rd straight. 5 runs for the Orioles against the Yankee pen. Yankees now tied for first. Orioles just 2 back. For Tom Verducci and Ken Rosenthal, Kenny Albert saying goodnight. After the break, we'll send it to Kevin Burkhardt in our studio in Los Angeles. Orioles over the Yankees, 9-4.